Bears.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't
Bears.
forget it.
All right. Let's talk Bears if there's anything worth talking about. There's not much
a
worth
whole
talking
lot.
about.
Minus 31. I mean, the one thing that's worth talking about is there's no more Nagy, so it can only be a positive, you'd think, for Justin Fields. They've talked about crafting it around his strengths as any normal good head coach would do, which should mean more rushing attempts for him, which does have him coming out okay in my projections, but I'm still hesitant. You know, there's tons of great data. We've talked about Jalen Hurts last year. Didn't do much with his arm, but the rushing really vaulted him up. I do think he has a little bit more of an arm, though, than Justin Fields. He was inaccurate all year unless he takes some huge steps. And maybe we see that in training camp because I could get down on Justin Fields. Coming in, I liked the prospect a lot. I just hated everything I saw. And it's tough to know how much of that was negative.
You hate everything you see. Like, that's the thing, right? I hated everything I saw. I'm not buying this guy.
I'm not either, especially with the weapons. And we'll talk about that right now while we go through.
What weapons?
Exactly. So the 21% rush share.
Byron Pringle
is really the only reason to like him. 600 rush yards and 4 touchdowns. That would be pretty damn sexy. Other than that, you look at how I've divided up the work. 28% going to Darnell Mooney. And that's why I do like Mooney, because I think he's just going to get bathed in targets, coming out with 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. I can get down on that. I also really, really like the rookie they drafted. Not in Dynasty. I know how old he is and everybody wants to hate on him, but as a last-round dart throw, Velus Jones, they're saying he's learning every single receiver position, that he's learning the backfield positions because they're trying to make him – they've already comped him to Deebo Samuel a million times. Deebo's, of course, special next-level talent that very few, if anybody's, ever going to come in and match. But that role, that type of volume, is whether you're Deebo or not. If you're going to see carries, you're going to see catches, you're going to move all over, I'll buy into that role. Cordell Patterson last year. Like, that is the type of player that if you can get him in the last round, just go take the stab and see what happens. He might suck. He might be useless. He's taking his whiteboard, though, to practice, and I love that about him. So I have him coming in.
We have always liked that.
Oh, of course. How could you not like to bring your, you bring your lunch pail or you bring your whiteboard? Either way, you're set for work, and I love it. Velus Jones. But also you look as like everyone, how's he going to be number 2 receiver? Who else is there to climb above? Byron fucking Pringle, Equinemius St. Brown. Like, we don't need to worry about either of them.
No, we sure don't.
No. Cole Kmet, maybe mildly intriguing, but I don't know. Yeah, I have him seeing 82 targets, a 16% share, hauling in 50 of them for 5.
He's not intriguing, but he's the type of guy, like, if you punted on tight end, you could probably grab really late in the draft and be like, yeah, fine, he's fine.
Whatever. Yeah, he goes in the same range as Irv Smith, and I go.
Does he really?
Every single time.
I would go Irv Smith over him 100 times out of 100.
Exactly. More athletic, just more interesting. Kmet was the number 1 tight end coming in a couple years ago, so like there's still some upside here. But as you both said at the top, we're not believers in Field really, at least for his passing game. 3,364 yards. That's not a huge aerial pie, especially when I think 30% of it's going to one player in Darnell Mooney. Other than that, there is, of course, David Montgomery. He's been a top 12 running back in back-to-back years in points per game. He gets one of the easiest schedules year in and year out because the Lions suck. The Packers always have a bad run D. I guess they're getting a little bit better. But I think he's back and locked in for a pretty monstrous workload, over half the carries at 264, seeing 51 targets. They've talked about really emphasizing the zone run game and just making this one of the most run-heavy offenses in the league. And I buy it because, Montgomery and Fields as a runner are really your best 2 weapons, in addition to bombing a few to Darnell Mooney every week. And that's what I think this offense will be. Montgomery just carrying the shit out of the ball. Fields having some nice, interesting run designs and a handful of timely bombs to Mooney is all you're going to really get out of here for consistent production, unless Velus Jones does become this move-around piece that has some nice blow-up games for you as well.
They're going to be so bad. And this one reminds me a little bit of how I suspected maybe you were like cringing a little bit at some of the Viking stuff. Similar thing with David Montgomery. You've got him projected as your RB14 points-wise, but on your big board, you only got him at 19. You're just like, I'm not really looking to like mix it up with these guys if I don't have to.
Yeah. The one thing I'll note too,
remember how bad he used to be?
That rookie year was horrible.
I mean, he was like, we joked about him just incessantly about
it was bad. It was
what
so
a terrible running back he was. And then all of a sudden he just wasn't.
He was the times we watched him last year, we both raised it. We're like, we're wrong. Montgomery, I don't know where it came from or where it was for that rookie year, but he was a bowling ball these last couple of years.
Yeah,
he's a good running back. I think we can come around and say he's a good player. He's going to get a lot of volume. I guess I do only have him at 19 because the ceiling is ultimately capped in an offense like this, you'd think. But he does get week 17. He gets the Lions, which he always steamrolls. So all you guys out there playing best ball and you need that week 17 winner, it could be Montgomery going for like 30 against the Lions.
I mean, is he the type of, but is Montgomery the type of back that you know, it's like, oh, we're going to just run him into the ground or whatever?
They have. Remember,
don't you just think he's
playoffs 2 years ago? He was the number one guy.
I do remember.
We were laughing about his playoff schedule not mattering. We're like, this sucks that such a bad running back has such a light schedule. And that's
and he torched him
on the bulletin board. Because remember, he was the number one running back in the fantasy playoffs. And we're like,
I do remember.
Shit.
And it was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. I see a high risk of injury for him. I really do.
He's
look, any NFL running back, I guess there's a high risk of injury, but I feel like people are going to try to maybe stack the box against these guys a little bit and be like, hey, beat us downfield, Justin Fields. I don't know. If you told me Montgomery was going to have a ton of carries and have like a low yards per carry this year, I would not be shocked by that.
He takes a lot of shots. And I think where I may be a little off on the projections is at 51 targets. That might be too many for him. He got a lot of targets last year, but they were with Andy Dalton at quarterback. And so I want to go back and look at the splits of Justin Fields versus Andy Dalton and how that impacted the receiving work. Because there's a lot of studies out there now that mobile quarterbacks don't tend to dump the ball off because they'll just run for it themselves. We've seen it with Lamar Jackson and all those running backs never see targets. It happens time and time again. There's a lot. It's not just like a case study where there's a couple outliers. It's pretty steady that mobile quarterbacks don't typically throw to the running backs nearly as much. I think Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara, when Drew Brees used to pepper him, and then Taysom Hill comes in and Kamara's receiving volume just tanked.
Does Andy Dalton still play in the NFL?
He's on where the fuck is Andy Dalton now? He's with the Saints. Speaking of the Saints.
I would have taken me at least 15 guesses to get that.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.